Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another live episode of Brazen Insights with Asia. I have a little special thing going today. Um, I don't really do lives, so this is, it's not really off the cuff. It's a little bit more planned than last time. But today's episode is a live reaction to the recent Lauren Chen and Tenet Media indictments. Now, like I said, I got something special for you guys for tonight. It is Saturday, so I figured let's switch it up. Um, like I said, we're gonna be doing this. I want to try to do these live videos as regularly as possible. No promises, but today I have to let you all know I do have myself a special guest, and we're going to be getting into it tonight about the indictments about Lauren Chen, her husband. Maybe talking about the commentary that we're seeing, particularly from your right-wing independent media outlets. So just make sure you guys stick with us for the whole episode because we got a lot to talk about. Your fault why you can't achieve it. Because you've been sitting here blaming whites. Oh, it's the white man. It's systemic racism why I can't have generational wealth. Amen and hallelujah to that. Amen and hallelujah. Hey, you folks. So, like I said, today I have a special guest. She is the host of Archie's Briefings, a YouTube channel of her own right. And it's doing pretty well, I have to say. And you guys may notice a little something about this host. So, let's bring on Archie herself, Archie's host, Archie.
Hello.
How you doing, Archie?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. Coming off a really good week. Had a good episode today. It was very funny, at least in title. I'm getting a lot of comments on how funny the title is. So that was fun.
I know. I haven't watched the whole episode yet, but that thumbnail and that title definitely drew my attention. So before we get into today's subject, I do want you to kind of tell my audience the name of the episode and what the episode is about.
Okay, so today's episode of Archie's Briefings was called Kamala Gets Dick. Reason being is because Dick Cheney has officially endorsed Kamala Harris, and we kind of went into how she's being endorsed by a bunch of warmongers, and that it really just shows you that the unifying of warmongers, really, they make profits off of bloodshed, and how now you're having this cross party between Democrats and Republicans endorsing Kamala Harris, particularly the ones that were criticized for being considered war criminals. I mean, Susan Sarandon went after Bush and Dick Cheney for this, and essentially that's pretty much the whole episode today. But I knew that it was a joke. I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw Dinesh D'Souza's tweet, and because I had a whole other title for today. And then I saw his tweet and I was like, nope, that is
What was
it.
Dinesh D'Souza's tweet? He said, Kamala
What was
gets
it?
word.
Well, he said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said something along the lines of, it was a big mistake to assume that Kamala needs another dick. I'm like, that was hilarious. And I'm like, nope, that's the name of the episode. Because I had a whole other episode. It's like, vote for Kamala still after this, question mark. But then I saw that. I'm like, right, you got to go with the joke. You got to go with the pun. And I didn't want to pull a Jesse Waters and say, oh, no, I didn't mean it that way. Of course we mean it that way. It's literally a pun. It's supposed to be funny. Crass, but funny nonetheless. It's more of a Jonah Hill super bad kind of humor. But I had to go for it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because I saw it. Now, being the fact that I am your twin sister, I know you. So I know you don't like vulgarity. So the fact that it was called Kamala
well, funnily enough, that's not a word. Like, I don't mind saying, I mean, I don't want to keep saying it, right? It's like, oh, she just can't stop saying.
I hear you, right? Because it's vulgar.
But it is vulgar, but it's not the P word, right? Like, I don't say the P word. I don't like clapping.
And she doesn't mean pause people.
I don't. P word galore, the villain in James Bond. And then you know the word I'm talking about. P word galore.
Oh, indeed. Gosh, I'll make sure that we put in the description, in the comment section where everyone can find you, your YouTube information and things like that.
for
But
sure.
let's get into what today's episode is about. I do have a couple of clips that I want to show you that were on Twitter, talking
Yeah.
about the Lauren Chen situation. I know there are a lot of right wing commentators out there talking about what's happening with Lauren Chen. I have no intention on showing those clips because I've lost respect for Megyn Kelly, and you know how I feel about the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro. So
Yeah.
I was already not going to show that. But before we get into it, what is your opinion about Lauren Chen and everything that's come out as it relates to the indictment and what you've seen so far?
Well, for starters, I found out about Lauren Chen from watching an episode of Candace Owens. She was talking about the whole situation with RFK. I think that was the episode after the debate with Rabbi Shmuley. And in her lineup, where she was saying all the different things she was going to talk about, she brought up Lauren Chen. And I thought, well, what about Lauren? And then as I'm watching the episode, she's like, they're saying that she's a Russian agent, that she took money from these other people, that all these wingers are coming out saying that they don't like her anymore. They're not supporting her anymore. And it didn't make any sense. I'm trying to understand, like, wait a minute, when did this happen? And literally, it was just from watching an episode of Candace Owens. I had no idea that this was happening. And then when I found out that she was associated with the Russia, I immediately my antennas went up. First of all, with a name like Chen, if she was going to be a foreign agent, it would be for China. We did just see that happen with Governor Hochul in New York. We found spies in the governor's staff, and this is the same woman who's been working for Cuomo as well. So we're finding
And
spies.
you know
Remember, there
what?
was a
That
spy with
wasn't
Dianne
surprising.
Feinstein. It's
Um,
like this wasn't surprising
that
finding, and it was really with Democrats. You're finding spies mostly with Democrats.
yeah,
Dianne Feinstein's driver turned out to be a spy. Swalwell
Fang
with
Fang.
Fang Fang. Like, if you're
Yeah.
finding spies, they were going to be from China and they were
Yeah,
associated with
because I
Democrats, not
wasn't
Russia.
surprised finding another spy in New York when especially when you find out that the Chinese police in New York in Chinatown was reporting back to the CCP. So
This
it
guy was
wasn't
the Chinese
at all
police at all. It's kind of
surprising.
ridiculous.
But
Since when do we?
yeah, I know. Allow any other nation's cops in America. Like who allows that
Right. This
nonsense?
wasn't a
So I
neighborhood
wasn't
watch.
surprised by that. But I would say when it comes to the Lauren Chen situation, I think I was watching Megyn Kelly. Like I was watching Megyn and I thought,
Hmm.
I saw it said something about Lauren Chen and I'm like, what the heck happened with Lauren Chen? And when she was describing it in her opening, I was like, what? And she was criticizing her and calling her she's a troll. And I stopped following her because her content was this, that, and the third. I'm like, Megan's entitled to her opinion. But the whole time I'm thinking she's going to defend Lauren. She was dropping the information about the indictment.
I
And
didn't mind.
I didn't yeah, I didn't mind her opinion on Lauren's content. She's entitled to it. I'm like, it's not everybody's cup of tea, right? Especially
Right.
when it comes to the comments that Lauren was making about the 19th Amendment, it needing some reforms, and I in some way agreed with Lauren in that. You know how I feel about redundancy. It's for the stupid or the corrupt,
Yeah.
to prevent that kind of corruption. So it's like I didn't disagree all the way with Lauren Chen on that. But again, Megan is entitled to her opinion. It was the fact that she wasn't being objective about the indictment, considering not 2 weeks ago was Megan criticizing the same DOJ. And so before we jump into the actual conservative media commentary, I
Mhm.
want to show you this clip that I found on YouTube. It's from there's two clips I'm going to show you. The first clip is the one with an individual who worked for Lauren at her media company, Tenant Media, and what's happened to him since the indictment came out.
Got you.
I was yeah, I was completely shocked by what they did to this guy because it's like, he was just an employee. So
Ugh.
on this Twitter page, this guy's name is DC Drano. This isn't the journalist, however, that was, that what happened to him. So in this tweet, it says, "This is awful. YouTube has permanently banned the channels for Tenant Media, Lauren Chen, and now Taylor Hansen." That's the journalist. No, that worked for Lauren. No convictions, just allegations. This is wrong. Innocent until proven guilty. And so Taylor Hansen comes out and he says, permanently banned on YouTube with no explanation. Are they going to stop with me, or do they have an axe to grind with anyone that was affiliated with Tenet at all? This is 100% targeted, and no explanation has been given despite the DOJ indictment explicitly stating that show hosts and reporters were victims if the allegations turn out to be true. And so before I play the whole video, I do have to say that these are just allegations. The indictment itself say allegations
Right.
and
But
accusations. They don't
remember,
actually say.
right. But not only does it say that these are just allegations, it also says that if these allegations turn out to be true, that these hosts, and I would assume that includes Lauren herself, are victims.
So not Lauren herself, her and her husband are the founders of Tenet Media.
So
So
they would
the
know if this
indictment
turns out
state,
to be true.
yeah, they
Okay.
exactly. So if the accusations are true that are stated in the indictment, Lauren and her husband would be considered co-conspirators, where the hosts that worked for them or had contracts with Tenet Media would be
Right.
victims. And the victims are, Taylor Hanson, Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, and others. They would be the victims of
Gotcha.
Lauren's co-conspiring.
If this turns
But
out
let
to
me
be
play
true.
this clip real quick because it was like, wow. If yeah.
So, just permanently banned on YouTube. No explanation at all. It says I can never own a channel or operate a channel ever again. So that's lovely. Obviously admits the DOJ indictment of the alleged activities of Russian funding. Tenet Media was banned almost immediately. Lauren Chen was banned almost immediately. And now I was banned with no explanation, even though the indictment states, if these charges are true, these allegations are true, we're all victims, the people that were hosts there and me as a reporter there. So it's interesting. It seems like the censorship czar is back out in full force. It's election season, baby. So yeah, ban with no explanation. I wonder if they're going to stop here, or are they just going to take it all the way? They're going to ban anyone that was ever affiliated with this brand, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. But there you go.
Permanently banned. That's pretty much what he's saying. That he
Yeah.
and all the hosts that worked there were permanently banned. What's your take on that?
Well, first, it pisses me off. Like, I know that there's a more intellectual way of saying that, but no, that's got me fuming. First of all, I do think it's because we are in the middle of an election season, and it is because she's been very vocal about Israel. Like, let's not even get this twisted. This whole thing really is just about her comments about Israel. The second they said that she was an agent of Russia, antennas went up. What do you mean Russia? Like, come on. This is a narrative that has been spun since 2016. If he wins, this is because Russia interfered. No, no, no. Because if you've known about this or had any kind of inkling that she was an agent with a foreign nation, then why didn't you bring these allegations sooner? Don't tell me it took you this long to bring these charges against. It didn't take them that long to find charges against Donald Trump. 34 counts after one thing, just about the whole hush money trial. So there was all of these terrible things going on when they look at people they don't like. We already know that this administration, Biden and Harris, want to take the opportunity to go after people that they do not like. They went after Tulsi Gabbard. They obviously went after Donald Trump. They went after Steve Bannon. They went after Giuliani with his law license. So automatically, I'm fumed over that. And then it's YouTube. Now, they didn't do it with Twitter because obviously we know Elon owns Twitter. YouTube is just another one of these machines that is associated with big government, because we saw that whole collusion when the Twitter files dropped.
Without a doubt, because no lie, the fact that he said the
I'm
censorship czar is back out and
and we shouldn't be
during
surprised
the election
because
cycle,
this is the same
I would have to say I
that
find
did the
it.
same thing with Twitter.
I do find that it's a coincidence that
And I think not.
all of your biggest commentators
Mhm.
who are named in this indictment, Dave Rubin, Tim
Yep.
Pool, Lauren Chen, Tenet Media, which had millions and millions of American followers,
Yeah,
that
sure.
they are named in this indictment as Russian agents not a week out from the first presidential debate with Kamala Harris.
Right, so that
Like,
way you don't have to hear their opinions about how crappy she's about to be.
I'm like, right. And so
Right.
that was I think that was one of the biggest things that bothered me. Like, it wasn't surprising to see that YouTube had eliminated all of these people from their
At all.
platforms. I think
I
that
don't
was
think
to
we
be
should be
expected
surprised.
because they were already doing stuff. Personally, I
Well,
think
I'll
I'm
say
getting
this.
some kind of stuff
I'll say
from
this.
YouTube.
I don't necessarily think I wasn't expecting a full out bar from YouTube. I wasn't expecting that at all. I
I
thought
wasn't expecting it either,
I
but are you
thought like some
surprised
things like
that they did this?
I'm not surprised that they interfered with independent media. I'm surprised that they've been completely barred from the platform. That I'm surprised of, because that, like, even when
Really?
I think was, yeah, like, what was
On
it? I think it
YouTube?
was when the Biden laptop came out and Twitter suppressed
Yeah.
the information. They didn't like remove the entire page. They just kept that part of their post unseen,
I'm
right? So you
trying to
couldn't
figure
see
out
the story
why.
about that. I didn't
I
expect them to be
understand why.
banned the way that
Yeah,
we,
so
you know,
I
because
I understand that. Hold on, let me ask you this question. I understand why you don't expect the banning. What I'm
right,
trying to understand is, why are you surprised by the full out ban, knowing that it's YouTube that did it? Why are you
because
surprised by that?
I have not seen someone be banned for saying something. Like, the only other person that I saw really get banned from YouTube, but it wasn't just YouTube, it was all other platforms. It was Nick Fuentes. That was the only one, and I wasn't really watching him. I still don't really watch him. But he was the only one,
Yeah.
and it was from all these platforms. And then we learned, this beef between him and Ben Shapiro and all the rest of that. But it was, it was just the one person. But generally, somebody else, they'll put up the disclaimers: this is disinformation, this is misinformation, or they'll try to fact check you. That's pretty much what they would do. I expected serious fact checking. I expected this is disinformation. I expected even some things like shadow banning. We're going to make it harder for people to find your stuff. We're going to make it harder for people to, subscribe. You won't see your subscriptions. You won't see some of the comments. If people think you're not engaging, then they're just going to fall off, right? That when you try to post things, they may prevent reach. That I expected, because that's like common strategy with the censorship that we've seen over the years. There's only one person that I've ever seen be completely barred, and that was Nick Fuentes.
Yeah.
Everybody else was getting fact checked, the disclaimers at the bottom: this is misinformation, disinformation,
So
and this is where you go to get the information. No one's actually ever
I
been
would
really
have to
barred,
say,
with the exception of the one. That's why it's shocking. I'm not
I would
surprised at tactics
I
to
would have
censor. I'm surprised at the banning entirely. That
so
I don't
I
think
would
I've
have
ever seen
to
that on YouTube.
I would have to say the barring someone from the platform is a tactic of censorship. I'm not surprised that YouTube did this. It was just something else to expect from them. It's it's unexpected because we've never seen it before, but it's not shocking because this is exactly what
Well, it's
YouTube
like,
and the
just
rest of
because you
them
have it as
are
a
willing to do.
weapon in your
Right.
arsenal doesn't
It
necessarily mean, like, just
doesn't
because
mean
I know
right.
you've got this
And
doesn't
though
mean
I
that I
understand
expect
that,
you to
yeah.
use it, because you've never used it,
Right,
at
but it's
least
not
not
surprising
recently.
that they've used it, because I know that it's a tool. It's a tool in the bag, is why I know they at some point can unleash that tool. I'm not surprised that they did this because YouTube has been in the bed of big government for so long that the second government says do something about it, that they would. Now it was unexpected that a full out ban would follow the indictment on YouTube, and not just on YouTube, right? She was fired from Blaze. They
Yeah, I
completely
didn't.
fired her based on accusations and allegations. Now, I can give Blaze Media grace because they're not a platform, they're a publisher,
That
and
is
at any moment
a distinction
well,
without a
no, because
difference.
Blaze they it is no, it isn't. There is a difference between a publisher and a platform. That much we
No, what
know,
I'm
and we
I'm
know
saying,
that
it's a
they don't
distinction
want.
without a difference. We know why they fired her. No
But
different
it
than how Candace
but
they got rid of Candace from Daily Wire. It was the
I
same thing.
I I disagree. I disagree
It's a
because for a
cover.
year she's been. It's not a cover. It's not a cover. They're covering their own asses because they don't want to get caught up in the nonsense with the DOJ, in my opinion. But she's been talking trash about Israel for a year now, and no one has done anything. You haven't heard anything about any back and forths. No rumors have come out about that. So I'm not going to comment on something that is probably not even true or haven't even been rumored yet. What I do know is that they don't want to be caught up in this Russian indictment nonsense. So they fired her. Now, as a publisher, you have a right to get rid of any host that are caught
Yeah,
up
of
in
course.
scandal, especially when it comes to the DOJ. So I can offer grace to the Blaze. I can't, however, offer the same grace to YouTube because as a platform, you are supposed to allow freedom of speech. And because of Obama, propaganda was made legal. So let's go down the rabbit hole. let's assume she is a Russian spy, Russian agent, or Russian shill, whatever the hell they want to call her. Does she not have the right to spew the Russian propaganda under the laws that Obama passed regarding propaganda and her First Amendment? Did YouTube actually have the right to kick her off
I
platform, considering the First Amendment and the fact that it has been made legal to push propaganda on the American public? So taking those two factors into consideration,
so I
going down this
personally
rabbit hole, assuming she's guilty.
so I personally here's the thing. I'm trying. Let me think. So whether she has First Amendment rights, propaganda being legal in America, would she be protected if this were to be the case? The answer would be yes. Oh, it's because it's not propaganda in the favor of the American communist is why she has to go down for being a Russian agent. And so that would pretty much be the case there. Which should she be protected? I'm like, well, if you're not an American propaganda individual, well then no, I guess not, but that's why the rabbit hole thing, like I don't even play that game because to be honest, I don't like that the Blaze fired her because this would be no different. Like when we see people's lives get ruined over accusations, like imagine if Lauren Chen were a black guy who was lied on saying that you raped somebody and his whole life gets ruined over an accusation. Everybody would be coming out in droves saying,
Okay,
oh, yada,
so
yada.
that's different.
No. What I'm saying is it's the principle here. It's the principle, not the circumstances are the same. It's the principle that someone is pushing an allegation and your whole life gets ruined over allegations. So her main source of revenue is her voice, and she was just fired from the Blaze.
Right.
She is no longer able to continue her work on YouTube. I'd understand if you wanted to cease operations with Tenet, okay, but that she should still be able to pick up her cell phone and go live from her cell phone. Like I still have that ability. I should still be able to do that. She can't even do that anymore. Like they've officially stripped whatever means she has of earning a living because of these allegations. This is nothing more than just an accusation until we actually have more proof, which we're never going to get because you never get any proof. And that's the thing that's what I'm saying here.
We're like, I get that. We're gonna get into that. I just wanted to know what's your take on the fact that none of the allegations that they're making aren't crimes as it relates to pushing propaganda, because that's what they're accusing her of.
I
that
understand
YouTube banned her and she's being indicted for pushing Russian propaganda, which ultimately has been made legal by the government. And so that's why I'm asking you, not just about why you're shocked, but did YouTube legally have a right to pretty much stop her way of earning money simply based on the fact that she is accused of pushing propaganda?
I think we're asking the wrong question.
True. Well, it's not the wrong question. I'm asking
I think
you,
it is.
I'm not asking the wrong question. I'm asking you your opinion. If we go down the rabbit hole of the accusations and they are true, does YouTube have a right to ban someone from pushing propaganda? Can you consider the fact that pushing propaganda is legal in this country and her First Amendment right? Did they have a right to kick her off platform?
I'm saying
anybody off of that
answered.
platform.
I said
any American individual.
I said going down the rabbit hole, I don't think that they had that right, but I'm assuming it's because she's not I don't know what the word is, but to be, an American propagandist, that's fine. But to be a Russian propagandist, then it's not. But that's the classification that they're making here, but that's not what the Obama law says. This propaganda is legal, and so if it's illegal,
I would say
what
that
difference
would
does it
be
make
a
if it's American?
What is it?
No,
Distinction without a difference, or difference?
Yeah, it's a distinction without a difference. No, but that's what I'm saying, right? It's not me saying that this is the case. If propaganda is legal, then her being a Russian propagandist shouldn't matter. But it does to the people who are bringing the allegations. If you're not an American propagandist, then you are going to suffer consequences for pushing propaganda of other countries, unless you're China. But then that's their distinction. I'm not saying it. Why should, if propaganda is allowed, why shouldn't any nation be allowed to lie to the American people? Why does it matter that it's Russia? Going down the rabbit hole. And if that's the case, did YouTube have a right to remove her when propaganda is legal? It doesn't say which people, which nations, including ours, is allowed to lie. It just says you can't. So if anybody can lie, well, then what difference does it make? What difference does it make if it's coming from Russia? And so the distinction that the government is making is like, well, if you're not an American liar, then
Right.
we can come for you. I'm not saying it. They are
Or if
going
you're
down that
lying
rabbit
for
hole.
Russia.
So if you're
Right.
lying for
Like if
Russia,
you're
then
lying
yeah,
for
you
Russia.
got to go
You lie
down.
for
But if you're
China, you
lying
can
for
lie for
America,
Israel, but you can't lie for Russia.
word. Exactly. If you lie for the narrative that we push, you're okay. But if you're lying for a potential adversary, well, then you can't. And that's the distinction that the government is clearly pushing here. But that's going down the rabbit hole. The reason why I say that I think we're asking the wrong question is because it's a question of, does YouTube have a right to remove someone permanently based off of an allegation? Like, you just stripped this woman and her husband of, I'm assuming, is their primary source of income. This is their livelihood. And so does
And
this
you know what?
platform have a right to remove and ruin a person's life and take away their number one source of revenue to pay for said life? I think they've got kids. They got a whole family to take care of here. Do you have a right to just ruin this person's life and take away their opportunity of providing for themselves and their families off of allegations? That's why I brought up that case of it was a college kid, actually. He got lied on by some girl who said she was assaulted, and he not only lost his scholarship, he was kicked out of school altogether. His whole life changed because somebody lied. So these are just allegations. Off an allegation, somebody's whole life could just be ruined. Do you have the right to ruin someone's life and take away their primary source, any source of income that takes care of themselves and their families, just off of allegations? And that's what I think is wrong here. That's what I think is problematic. Going down the rabbit hole is fine and all, but what we do know is that these are just allegations, and she just lost her primary source of income that takes care of her and her family. Do they have a right to do that?
I agree with you. As relates to that second question, I don't believe the question of if YouTube having the right to do what they did is, I don't believe that to be the wrong question. I think it's highly important because big tech are making decisions that we know are unconstitutional. And so you have to look at the fact that they are violating First Amendment right. They are violating,
They're killing people
violating
without
the
actually
law.
killing people.
And
It's
so I do
beautiful.
think that the first question I asked you was relevant. It wasn't the wrong question. It was
Well,
it
it
was a
was
necessary question to be
it was
asked.
going
You
down the
know, I'm
rabbit hole, which the
well,
rabbit
and though
hole
what
is not
I understand you don't like to get
necessarily
into you
not
don't like to
real,
go down
but
the rabbit hole, but on Brazen, we go down the rabbit hole. And sometimes when you go down that rabbit hole, it makes you ask the questions that nobody wants to ask. Did they have a right
what's the
based on
difference
these
between
facts?
an American
So
liar and a Russian?
right.
Yeah, I hear
It's
you.
not
I
so
agree.
much
It's funny, but
it's not so much that she's an
so
American liar, it's the
that's right.
fact that
Not
they are
so much.
accusing her of lying for Russia, because
Well,
it's
no, I'm
fine if
saying
you
like,
lie for
well, no,
Israel. It's fine
well,
if
yeah, I
you
understand.
lie
I'm saying,
for
like, what's the difference
yeah.
between an American liar
So
and everybody else from other countries if we're going to say propaganda is legal? Yeah,
right.
I get it. I
So
totally
it's
understand that.
the fact that YouTube did make these choices, did choose to
Hmm.
ban her and everyone who worked for Tenet Media, with the exception of the private contractors that had a contract with them, right? Dave Rubin, Tim
Right.
Pool, and others. They're able to still proceed, even though Dave Rubin was making $100,000 a week. Tim Pool was making like $100,000 per video he did for them, and yet they're still able to continue on YouTube.
Yeah.
But this guy, Taylor Hansen, he was an actual employee, and so he doesn't get to publish content. So never
I think
mind just
it's
Lauren Chen,
because
but even the employees are being held accountable. And now that we've established that YouTube has no right to ban anyone permanently,
hmm
because no laws were violated, knowing that's the case, I actually want to talk to you pretty much about the precedent that I think was set, and I want to know your opinion on it. So in the indictment, the allegations that were made, there were two allegations that were being made in this
right.
indictment. The first one that was made was money laundering. So according to the paperwork, the indictment itself is saying that she received $10 million from two Russian individuals who once worked for a company named, I can't remember it verbatim. It was easy to remember as RT. I would tell you to look into
Mhm.
it, but pretty much this was a media company based in Russia. It once operated in the UK and once upon a time in the United States. But when this Russia-Ukraine war really kicked in, Britain kicked them out. The United States didn't want them working here. And so these two individuals took their money, their $10 million, and gave it to, invested in Lauren Chen and her husband's business, Tenet Media.
Right.
They're saying that they laundered the $10 million. Now, as you know, if you can account and track all of the dollars, it's not money laundering.
laundered.
Right?
This is, I
Because if
used
this
my
is
money
right,
and gave it to someone who was trying to
the
build a business.
individual.
And then I've
Right.
officially
The
become a
fact that it
board
came
member
from
of said
Russia
business. This is not laundering.
right. This isn't
Like, we
laundering.
watch
It's
enough cop
legitimate
shows,
fun.
people, to know what it is. Like, word, thank you, Law and Order, Major
Like,
Crimes,
this
The
isn't money
Closer,
laundering.
Saving Hope. Word, seen enough.
Exactly. And they
to
don't
know that's
really
not
give
what
you
this
any
is.
real evidence to suggest that the money was dark money. They don't show no evidence that this money came from the Russian
Yeah, this could have
government
been
through
they
these
had
men
jobs
to
saved.
right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
there's
That's what
no
this looks
evidence,
like.
right, that it could be their $10 million, $5 million from each Russian individual. Because there's no evidence even mentioned in the indictment. So the money laundering was a bunch of hogwash, in my opinion, because again, maybe they didn't put everything in the indictment. And the second charge was that failure to disclose failure to disclose that she is her and her husband and her business, Tenet Media. They failed to disclose that it was a foreign agent operating in the United States, simply because she received the $10 million from Russians who were connected to Russian state media. Our official, the failure to tell them that they were a Russian agent, if you will, that the business was a Russian entity, a foreign entity, is why they're being indicted. Allegedly a foreign entity, simply because they got $10 million from these Russians.
I think
I'm
when
like,
it comes to the indictment, the fact that
accusations, so there are no charges. These are just accusations. At least that's what the indictment says. It doesn't say charges. It says
I think the point of them going public with this indictment and there's no charges, it was like, I don't know if you remember the what was it? The Mueller report. And it said that I can't we can't say he's guilty, but I can't say he's innocent either. It was like, wait a minute, what? It's literally one or the other. You spent how many taxpayer dollars? You spent how many months to over a year? I think that's what it came down to. We were all waiting for the Mueller report. And the most used word in the hearing for the Mueller report was, what was it? Sad, hard to watch was what people kept saying. This was painful to watch. The word painful was the most used about the Mueller report, because what you were saying was there's not enough evidence to say that he's guilty, but because there's just an inkling of something here is why I can't say he's innocent. I can't absolve him of this either. You can't have it both ways. Either they're guilty or they're innocent. The fact that they're saying that this is an indictment of accusations, but no real evidence here. We know there's no money laundering here. That's quite obvious to us. There's no real evidence in the indictment to say that she's an agent. Well, let's say she didn't disclose it. We would see something. When the Diddy indictment came out, we had pictures of the bathroom with blood on the floor, a witness. You had so much information. That's why, there's a lot more here. There's more information to say why we all think Macron's wife is a freaking man than there is saying that Lauren Chen is a Russian agent. Sorry to say. Like, I'm not saying that I think, Macaroon's wife is a man. I'm just saying there's a lot of compelling information here. We've got people who can actually prove to some degree that Brigitte shows some stuff here about Brigitte to at least, have us wonder, like, this is looking a little too real here. I'm not getting that feeling with this indictment here. There's not enough to say that she's guilty, but you can't say she's innocent either. I don't, there's,
and
this is kind of
I would
concerning.
say,
and again, the Russia part
I would say
is
a
also
lot
a
of
good
the
indicator.
responsible people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, I would say they are the most responsible here, right? I believe if you're not going to comment at all, you're not commenting simply because you're waiting for more evidence to come out before you comment on it. And so I can't stand some of the conservative commentary that we've been seeing, particularly from, individuals like Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro. And the fact that they are lawyers, never mind the journalists, but the fact that they are both attorneys. They are both lawyers. And the fact that They completely ignored the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, because even though the indictment says allegations and accusations, they were condemning Lauren and her husband and Tenet Media like they were actually guilty of this. There is no charges that been brought against them. Now, I'll say, to be fair to Megan, she did say that, oh, they could be cooperating with the DOJ. That's probably why they're not being charged with anything.
Then
But
why
even in
doesn't it
that
say in
statement,
the
right,
indictment? Like,
but
I don't.
indictment,
Okay, they're
right. That's
cooperating,
what
but
I was
wouldn't
just
someone
about
have
to
been
ask you.
charged?
Wait, hold on. I was just about to ask you. Doesn't that statement alone suggest that she's guilty? The one that Megan made about how even though she wasn't charged with anything, she could already be working with or cooperating the DOJ, hence why there's been no charges brought. Doesn't that suggest that she's guilty of this?
That does suggest that, like, as if there was, we won't charge you if you work with us to catch the bag. Like, they're somehow going to make her an agent of theirs. That's the allegation that's made
Right.
about P. Diddy, that he eventually became an operative for the government. And that's possibly what Megyn
Yeah.
Kelly is insinuating here, that the reason why she's probably not being charged is because she's cooperating and most likely going to be an operative into catching these Russians, as if there are probably any to get. Now, I'm not saying that she didn't accept money from Russians, from Russian people who were building and investing into her business. This is a question of whether or not these individuals had malicious intent here. I'm talking about the Russian people that invested into her business.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think that she's a Russian asset. It's a question of whether or not
Yeah.
the people that she accepted money from had any malicious intent, and that you just got caught up in this. Would that make her a victim or a perpetrator? I can't say otherwise. I don't think she's guilty of this. I don't believe that she is a traitor to her country. I've watched enough of her and listened to her to know, just off of, spiritual discernment, she's not a traitor to her country. I can understand why some people may have gotten caught up and didn't realize what they were getting themselves into. Like, your friend picks you up to go to the store and you don't know that you're riding around in a stolen car. Now you're both getting arrested. That's could be what's happening with Lauren Chen. You thought that these individuals were just investors looking to support your content and support your goal of building a media company. And that's quite possible that that is true. I believe that more than I believe that she intentionally had a conspiracy to, hurt the American people. I just don't believe that to be the
Yeah.
case. Now it's a question of whether or not she knew about this is going to be criminally, charged. I don't know. I'm not an
Right.
attorney. I don't know if that's the thing. What I don't like about the conservative commentary here is that, Ben Shapiro interviewed her on the Daily Wire. He interviewed her.
He
He brought
did.
Lauren Chen on, right? I've listened to her interview with Marsha Blackburn, who I think is an incredible senator of Tennessee. I think she's great. She's interviewed so many other people. It created a lot of respect, a lot of among conservative policymakers, content creators. She's been able to maintain peace among the storm, especially after October 7th, and wasn't afraid to come out in defense of Jesus Christ our King. I just find it incredibly difficult to believe that she's a traitor to her nation. And for Megyn Kelly and Ben
Yeah, I would.
Shapiro, and I'm not surprised because I've stopped liking Megyn Kelly. I stopped
A long
subscribing
time
to her
ago.
the moment she said that there was no cheating in the election. Okay, there was some cheating, but not enough to change the outcome. Okay, so that's a Maricopa you just pulled off here. Okay, first there was no cheating. Now you're at the point where you've accepted there's some cheating, but not enough to
Serious.
change the outcome of an election. After seeing the footage, you still hold this value. I'm no longer subscribing to you, but I think you have common sense. So once in a while, I'll check back with you. Then the whole thing with Candace Owens and Daily Wire happened, and
Yeah.
I knew then, yeah, I was right to stop subscribing to you. And then this happened with Lauren Chen, and I had to go into the comment
Yeah,
sections.
I would
I
have.
went,
Yeah,
I think
I have
my
to
not
say,
subscribing to you was probably the best decision that I've ever made, because this is ridiculous. We don't trust this entity. We see the same thing about Black Americans, right? So let me get this straight.
yeah,
You don't trust the
I would
system,
have
but
to
then the system
say,
goes after Donald
I
Trump,
would
and now
say
you
I
trust it.
stopped subscribing to. I recently stopped subscribing to Megan. It was because of
Mhm.
this. I disagreed with her on a couple of things. But the reason
I
why I was
think she's
watching Megan is because,
officially
you know,
trashed.
she was the someone down the middle. She was objective. She could be objective. The fact that she was the devil's advocate. So let's say she had someone who was pro-life, she would debate as the pro-choice advocate. So that way you could have that debate. And so I enjoyed that back and forth in the debates that she would put out there. So it was like, you know, she can be objective, she can be down the middle.
The
But then
devil's
came
advocate.
this situation with Lauren
Saw that
Chen, and
movie.
though I give her, she has a right to not like Lauren Chen's content. I found it completely disingenuous that she was doing the exact same thing that the left media does, where they clip sound bites so you can make someone sound ridiculous or unintelligent. I didn't like that she did it. I even said it in the comment section. Megan, you're being unfair. You're clipping
Yeah.
sound bites. You're not even providing full
Like,
context about the debate
when
that she was having surrounding the 19th Amendment, because that was one of
Mhm.
her biggest issues. And I think that was the moment Megan stopped liking her, because she said we need to reform the 19th Amendment, talking about women's right to vote. Not providing full context to her audience, because maybe not everyone who watches Megyn Kelly watches Lauren. So it's
Yeah, and
like
I've
you should
had
have
that
provided
debate
more. She should have
myself
provided
where
more. Yeah, she should have provided more context surrounding that clip and soundbite, as opposed to playing it and saying she's
Mhm.
an effing idiot. And it was that moment where I unsubscribed from Megan. Like, your
Megan,
Zionism is completely showing right now, because
the
you
funny
had
thing is
nothing
that
to
when
say about Lauren Chen's
you
opinion
go
when she
through the
was
comments,
saying that Americans don't want to involve themselves in Russia, Ukraine. But the second that she started talking about, you know,
Israel.
Christ is king in Israel, and even on her Twitter, she was saying APAC is funding a lot of our Congress. There's a lot of lobbying and a lot of money
$100
coming in
million
from
in
Israel.
our elections, and
Right.
yet they
And no
don't get
lie, I
any,
saw this.
this is
I have to
ridiculous.
tell you, there was a moment where right after Ben Shapiro started talking crap about Lauren Chen, right after that, he runs an ad for Israel.
You
For
see what we're
Israel, trying
saying?
to
It's like,
raise
and
money.
why is
And it
Ben
was like, but
Shapiro not
she's the
considered an agent? It's like,
agent of
understand,
a foreign entity.
like,
And so
this is
I do want to know what you're like. I have to say
you'd
this,
have to say the same thing about
I
Hollywood.
want to
How
know
many
what
movies are being made that they get foreign
that's
investment?
thank you.
You know?
You
Like,
just
I don't
brought me to
understand
my
this.
next question. What is considered,
Like,
if
this is
money
ridiculous.
from a person who isn't American, money that's coming from a person living in another nation, because not a,
Mhm.
a person, if that if that
I
qualifies someone as a foreign agent, in your opinion, what businesses in America do you think should be next to be indicted? I want to know, who do you think should be
Well,
on the
if we're
next
gonna do
list
this, it should
on that?
definitely be Hollywood. Should definitely be Hollywood. I'm not against going after media. If this is the standard, then you got to go after Daily Wire. You got to go after Warner Brothers, because you got to go after you got to go after Paramount. Okay, China's got money in Paramount. We saw the numbers dwindling after the whole Kurtzman Star Trek debacle. You got the biggest franchise, and yet you're not making the money. And what happened? China invested into Paramount. We saw that from I think it was Victor Doomcock's YouTube channel. And it's like, right. So if we're
Love
going to
him.
receive foreign entities, money from foreign countries, then, what's to say that you can't go after them? So is Paramount supposed to classify themselves as a foreign agent because they received money from China to make this crappy ass Star Trek that Kurtzman is pushing? Are we supposed to say that the Daily Wire has to address, say that they are a foreign entity? We've been trying to have APAC listed as a foreign agent since the damn 1960s, and then Kennedy was shot, and we just all of a sudden forgot about that. $100 million has been invested into our election just from the Jewish community alone. And we're speaking about APAC specifically, not so much the everyday American citizens who are Jewish. We're talking about APAC. $100 million, but you're going after Lauren Chen for 10 because Russian individuals with their own money invested into a media company. And it's a question of, did they do this while they were in Russia, or did they do this while they came to the United States? Are they citizens? And if we don't like this, then this means there are laws that have to be written about this. We don't want foreign investment, which, let's call a spade. You and I, we're
I
such
was just about
movie
to say
buffs,
that.
because after we looked at the history of Hollywood, and we saw that the moment they made the decision to get rid of
To
the
allow foreign investment.
opportunity, because this is what happened with Hollywood, right? They eliminated the opportunity for Hollywood studios to offer up property as collateral to get the funding to make movies. The second the government passed that law, they went looking outside of the country. Hence why you started to see a lot more foreign movies. I think this
Yeah,
happened
you
like
gotta
around the
remember, you
1950s.
gotta remember also you gotta remember that they did pass a law allowing foreign investment
Well,
into
yeah,
their
that's what I'm
films
saying.
back
Yeah,
then.
but
So it
that's what I'm
wasn't
saying.
just that. And
Well,
no, I'm
yeah, but
saying it
that's
was a two-prong it was a I'm saying I'm making the point that it was a two-prong thing, that they not only eliminated the studio's opportunity to own movie theaters, but then it wasn't just about Hollywood
yeah.
itself. They wanted to allow foreign investment into American industry, period. So it wasn't just
Yeah,
a Hollywood thing.
well, yeah, I
It was
understand that.
about it was about particular industries.
Yeah,
Honestly, I
well,
think
I
it was
understand
more
that that's
towards
well,
the,
yeah, but that's what I'm
like a
saying
Federal Reserve
specifically
thing,
to
conversation
this
for another day.
particular, this as it relates to Hollywood specifically. It's like the moment you removed the ability for them to use what leverage they had of their own to be able to make the product. Now I've got to go look elsewhere to get the funding I need to produce for my customer. And
Yeah.
if that's the standard that
Yeah,
we're
I
going with,
find that
and that's been the
I
case for
personally
decades,
think
why
that
is she
I
criminal
think that this
for doing
precedent.
the same thing Hollywood did, right? This she literally did the same thing that
Yeah,
Hollywood did. She got money from people from a
she
foreign
did.
country to build a media company. This is no different than what
Yeah.
MGM, Warner Brothers, some of the Hollywood studios didn't survive this. And
Maybe
we can
even
see
the
this
Daily
is
Wire, 'cause
ask
I
yourself
feel
why
like
there's no
not
more
all of
RKO.
their not all I feel like not all of their investors are American citizens. I do believe some of their investors are Israelis,
Yeah.
and so I'm
And
like, if
so
we're
are we
gonna
gonna go after the Daily
classify
Wire?
anybody who's received personally, I feel like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's simply because it's from Russia. But if that political pendulum swings in the opposite direction against
Mhm.
Israel's interests, then you would have to hold the Daily Wire
I
accountable.
think
And
that's
I'm
what's
like,
so
listen,
unfortunate
I'm not
about
for,
not having a strong
you know,
Christian country in
I'm for
the Middle
I
East.
agree. And I personally believe
Because
that
could
we
we
should be
just do
eliminating
that?
foreign investment, period. We like when it comes to pillars
Right.
of culture and it comes to industries of necessity, foreign investment should not be allowed. So when it comes to energy industry, when it comes to the
Agriculture.
agriculture, energy, any form of transportation, these are businesses that foreign investment should not be
Mhm.
allowed into, period. When it comes to pillars
Right.
of culture, i.e., academia, news media, entertainment media, these are industries that should not be allowed access
I mean, we
from
let them
foreigners, period.
invest into our stock markets. I'm like,
I
this,
know, and that brings me
this
to another point.
is,
I'm so glad that you said that, because I'm like, okay, so now every media company that is public on the stock market, we allow Russia still to this day, because we didn't, oh, you can't take private money, but they can take it through the stock market.
yeah. It's
Okay.
like, come on.
Oh, but it's
Okay,
money that's
so
paid. It's money that goes
you
to
don't
the
the
Russia's
shareholders.
military. So does my American dollars goes to my
Right.
American
It's like when they make
military.
the
You as
accusation every time an
communists
American buys something that's a Chinese
buys a
product. It's like,
Chinese
oh, the money
product,
goes
and
to
I'm
the
like,
CCP. You mean like when we buy from our own consumers,
I'm
they're
like,
taxed?
word, like
Why is
when
it
you
that that's not
go
the
to
case
your
over there?
local deli to buy your hoagie and a Pepsi, your
That
taxes
tax
go to your soldiers. It's
is
going
like
to your soldiers, and our
going to
government
the
is as
military.
communist as the CCP. So what the hell are you
It's like, what
talking about?
difference does it make if I
All this
buy
money we
from
allow
one
from the
communist government over
Saudi
the other?
Arabia is allowed to trade in our market. Saudi Arabia,
And they've
India is
got
allowed to trade
slaves.
in our markets. China is allowed. Russia is allowed. They're investing. So every business on the public market, on who's listed on
I
NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange,
There's a
all of them
question
are
of, are they
receiving
gonna be able to
investment.
invest in the Texas Stock Exchange? I'm curious to see if that's gonna
I hope
happen.
not.
I
I
hope
hope
not.
not,
But
because
one
I'm
of the
like,
builders,
personally,
one of
I don't
the
believe you
major
should
investors
allow.
turns out to be
You
BlackRock,
did.
so it's possible that
Yeah,
that could happen.
they're going to allow foreign investment. But I'm like, based on this terrible precedent that you're setting, every business in America that is public can be held accountable to the same standard, can be indicted. And all it takes is for you to be leaning to the right, or
I
to be
think
someone who's
that's
against
the most
Israel, or
that's the
someone
most
who is
telling thing.
considered America first. And anybody like
Yeah.
Elon can be indicted because he accepted foreign money to buy Twitter. He accepted money from someone either who lived in Saudi Arabia or India. I don't know which. I just know it was from the Middle East. And so, or
Yeah.
somewhere in South Asia or the Middle East, one or the other. And so the
And here's the
fact is,
thing.
he can be indicted for the exact same thing because he accepted
Well,
money from a foreign
yep.
person to buy
Mhm.
Twitter. So,
I
and they don't
would
like him very much. So,
well, here's the
if you're
thing.
someone, and this is where I think you and I are going to disagree, because personally, I think if you're someone like, let's say you're like me and you haven't met, like whether it's through super chats or someone cash apps you, YouTube broadcasts around the world. So let's say our content is really is a big hit in
Mhm,
Russia, if we're allowed to
mhm.
broadcast there, depending on what the hell YouTube does. But let's say
Right.
we're able to broadcast in Russia and someone sends you $500 through your Cash App, and maybe not even through a super chat, but directly through your Cash App. You are someone who is an advocate for Christian values, conservative principles, someone who stands against trans crazy people, someone who's for the 2A and Christian supremacy of the land, sort of. Well, not sort of, that's what you are. And you
Yep.
advocate for that. Someone sends you
Yep.
$500 via Cash App. Merrick Garland could easily say, Archie's briefings, we're indicting you for being a foreign agent. You didn't disclose that you're a foreign agent, and simply on the basis of taking the dollars from a Russian person is what makes you that.
So, um, this isn't that I don't think that this government, the Biden Harris or even a Harris Walz administration, wouldn't do that. I do think they would. I don't think it's the same thing as what's happening with Lauren Chen, because that was you negotiated over months and accepted. Like there was an agreement here that you would get this investment. Whereas if someone cash apps me or super chats me $500 from another country and it comes from a country that the government doesn't like very much, that they would come after me on the same basis as they're going after Lauren Chen, it's different. They'd still come after me. I mean, because I'm like, listen,
I
if
don't
I
think
had
it's different.
well, I do think it's different because I didn't sit down and have a whole conversation about receiving this money. This I have no control, like
Yeah,
because
they may
I
not
brought
get you.
like in
I
my,
think the
but,
only
but this
difference
is what I'm
you'll
saying
have,
here.
hold on. I think the only difference that you will find is that they wouldn't charge you with money laundering, but
Well,
they would still come after you for not disclosing, for being a
well,
foreign
again,
agent, for
this
having
is what I'm
received $500 from a
so
Russian.
again, this is what I'm saying. It's not that I don't believe that they wouldn't come after me, and even when they wouldn't come after me for the same allegations. Like I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that though they may come after me with the same thing, it's not the same. It's not the same, but they'd still come after me because they would say it's the same thing. It's not. I didn't sit down and have a whole months long of conversation of receiving an investment. This is someone donated or supported my show by cash apping me because I scroll my show's cash app at the bottom of
Let
my
me ask you,
screen,
is that would
So
that money wouldn't that money be used to build up your business, your show?
of course it would. But people, it's like
Right.
when you get a subscriber, you have no idea. Like, when Netflix gets subscriptions, okay? So someone regularly subscribes to your channel if it's coming from Russia. What's stopping Merrick Garland and this communist government from going after Netflix from receiving this an indictment from Merrick Garland saying, hey, because you received money from Russia and subscriptions, you are going to be considered a Russian asset. Like, but that's what I'm
Okay, so
saying.
I think I get what you're
It's
saying. You're
right,
saying that because the
the
reason why it's different
circumstances
is
are
because
different.
there's a difference between a subscriber, which is what the Cash App money would be, a
Right, in a
subscriber
sense. You
versus
know,
an investor. Someone Cash Apping to support the show isn't an investor. It's similar to a subscriber, not
yes,
similar to an investor. But if
right.
you were doing like a GoFundMe or whatever, and the money came through GoFundMe, then it would be more like what was going through with happening
Right,
with Lauren
because
Chen's
they're
indictment, right? Because then
investing. Like
that person would
GoFundMe's are
be an
generally
investor,
are like, I'm crowdfunding to
a
build my
list of
media company.
investors,
Maybe you'd get a list of names of
right?
people who are investing and they would
Okay,
be
so I
looking for
think I
some kind
get
of
what you're
return.
saying. You did win me
Yeah.
over on that one.
But now here's the
Someone who
thing
sends
though.
$500 is not an
Right.
investor. They're more
Now
like a subscriber.
Now, if you're asking me, do I think that Merrick Garland and Kamala Harris would come after me on the
Would
same
make that reach.
allegations? Oh, absolutely. The difference doesn't even matter. The
Yeah.
fact that I received money at all from a nation that they don't like, regardless of if I sat down and had a conversation or just received it as a support or a subscriber in some case, that difference doesn't matter to them. Oh, well, because she's a Christian nationalist, because she's a monarchist, because she's a conservative, America First conservative, we've got her. We've got an opportunity to get her because that's what happened with Lauren Chen. This is there was an opportunity to target her and to get her. And because I agree with Candace entirely, this is straight Game of Thrones right here. You can't trust anybody in this game, with the exception of, like, I know I could trust you in this game. Can I trust Megyn Kelly, to be honest? Like, okay, if I say something you don't like and your Zionist starts showing here, like, you're no Trish Reagan. You can be a Zionist in America. You can be that. No one cares. But this is a question of whether or not you're just going to turn your back on me. Like, you've had nothing evil or wrong to say about me. But the second I say something you disagree, now I'm an effing idiot. Now I'm a criminal. I'm a Russian asset. I'm a traitor. Come on. Like, this is horrible. They were looking for an opportunity to go after this girl because she doesn't like the idea of the United States going to war in defense of Israel. That's what this is about. Because frankly, even if she weren't saying anything about Israel, I'm saying that they weren't going after conservatives, would they have done this? I mean, look, Trump didn't have to say anything about Israel, right? Yeah. They just don't like him because they don't want him in the White House. Tulsi Gabbard didn't have to say anything about Israel. They just don't want her to have a voice. That's why she's on the terror watch list. We've all been saying that we can't trust these entities, and now we can trust them because Lauren Chen is a problem.
Is what has me. I think that's what has me even more upset with,
and it's still because
specifically
it's
with Megyn Kelly, I would have to say, because it's like,
horrible.
come on, like, you were just 2 weeks ago, you were just talking about how corrupt the DOJ is, and now all of a sudden the DOJ is all the way legit now because they invited someone who went after. Yeah, people were not happy with Megyn.
Yeah. It's like, Russia. Here we go. Megyn, wake up. Megyn, you sound like the left. Megyn, what's going on? This guy's an idiot. Oh, I hope she gets everything she has coming to her. Why do you have this person on your show, Megyn? What's going on, Megyn? Like, I scrolled so many times where they're coming at the guests that she has to comment on her commentary. Yep. They're going after Megyn because of her statements. They don't agree with what the hell is going on here. You can be a Zionist and disagree. Like, I watched Trish Reagan. She disagrees with Candace Owens on some of these subjects because she even herself refers to herself as a Zionist.
Like, even he's quiet right now because he's waiting to see what the evidence shows, and he's a Zionist.
And here's the thing, like, I haven't said anything about it because I wanted more. Well, not really. I wasn't saying anything. It's like there were other things I was talking about. My big focus right now is on the real life JLA. But there is something to this case as it relates to why it's so important to pay attention to our real life JLA, because if the reason why she got targeted is because she specifically spoke about Israel, and RFK is all about Israel, and JD is ready to go to war with Iran. And I get that you have some of these commentators like Vinny from Valuetainment saying, I'm still going to vote for Trump, even if he says war with Israel against Iran. This is what we're talking about. It's like, this is exactly what we're talking about. You can call me, because now everybody's anti-Semitic. Oh, she's anti-Semitic. Call you at this point. I don't care. You can call me names all you want. I'm not anti-Semitic.
That's what I love about my show is that, what I love about my show is that I don't care. Like, just in my live yesterday.
What you won't call me is disingenuous.
I have to apologize to the audience because when I went live yesterday, I got something wrong. I thought the shooter was shot and killed, the Georgia high school shooting. I thought the shooter was killed. And that I was wrong. He was not killed. He is facing charges. He is very much alive. So I do want to apologize for that. I did get that wrong. But I stand by everything that I said, that he was a crazy ass homo who thought that he was this, that, and the third. And I felt no shame in saying it because he deserves no respect. And so I have no issue calling him out of his name for that.
You have no respect
and,
for life.
There were a lot, people don't like it when you drop the H word. I'm like, well, I didn't call him the F word. You guys got to choose. Like, I'm not going to just refer to him as a homosexual or a homo American. Like, he's a criminal. He lost empathy. I don't look at him as a human being. I see him as a monster. And so I'm going to call him as such. And I'm going to refer to him out of his name. I was completely brazen about it. Did not care about people's feelings.
Because it's like word.
It's the same thing here. Like, we are not anti-Semitic. We don't hate Jewish people. I seriously dislike the fact that AIPAC gets to throw $100 million into our elections, that they get to throw millions and hundreds of millions of dollars into our pillars. I don't like the fact that they can just do what they want to do, run amok in culture, academia, media, Hollywood, politics, and no one holds them accountable. But let one person who wants to build a business and gets in touch with some Russians who were allegedly connected to Russian state media. Now all of a sudden, Russia, and Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro are like, the DOJ is corrupt. but they got good with this one. Are you out
Right.
of your mind?
Because why all
Like,
of a sudden, and we say the same thing about when it came down to Donald Trump, right? Black Americans don't trust the criminal justice system, but now you can trust them because they're going after Donald Trump. I mean, ask yourself, if you can't trust them and now they're going after Trump, but because you don't like the guy, oh no, it's okay because it's going after him. So you know you can't trust them, but you're willing to forget your
yep.
decade-long grievance against the criminal justice system. We're talking decades long of your grievances of why you can't trust America's criminal
Yep.
justice system, that now, after decades of complaining about them, and conservatives are now in agreement with you, now all of a sudden you can trust it because they're going after Donald Trump. I'm gonna need you to prioritize which which one you actually
And now
believe here.
that
And it's the
same
same thing
that same
happening with
ideology is
Megyn
happening on the
Kelly
right.
and Ben Shapiro, because let's call a spade. This is about Israel here, and Lauren Chen has been very consistent on how America just doesn't want to be in any of these wars. I've made that clear. That's been my position. You have every right to defend yourself. I just don't want to be a body that gets in front as well. I don't want my soldiers going out
I
there. I don't
know.
want our
But
tax
when did
dollars
it
going
become
out
a
there.
bad thing that I just don't like? You want to
Well,
fight, you fight. I don't.
yeah,
I'm
because I
I'm
think
not
that's the
getting
thing.
involved, right? It's like,
I think
we're the you know what this reminds me of, like how we are, like you and I, like our position when it comes to these wars. You remember how when we were younger, how we would walk our friends home who would have conflict,
uh-huh.
and we were the guy that would say, we're going to get you home and we're going to make sure you're safe. But the
Yeah,
second you come to blows, I'm out.
I'm out.
I'm
It's like,
out,
look,
right?
but
As
that's
long as there
the
was
the
peace, I
it's like
can
word.
I can
I
befriend I can befriend
word.
both of you as long as there's peace. But the
We
second
have
conflict comes to blows, the second you two start throwing
mhm.
fisticuffs, I'm out of this. And now it's up to you and I'm out. Now when people get into trouble and they look at me, they can say no, they weren't in it. they
I
they
personally
that's how you and I look at the wars with any other nation. No, we'll trade with you as long as there's peace in your region. But the second a conflict breaks out, the second fisticuffs, missiles,
we're out of there.
firearms,
Yeah,
invasions,
because I
whatever
mean,
you
here's
want to call it,
because
we're
you
out
look
of
at what
there. We're
Israel
we're
is
not getting
doing,
involved.
and
Why does
they're
that make us why does that make us isolationists? That's what I want. That's what I want your opinion on. Why does it make us isolationists when we say we don't want to be in anyone's conflict? We'll trade with you as long as there's peace in your
I
region.
don't
But the
think it
second
makes
there's
us
conflict, we're out.
So I don't think it makes us isolationists at all. We're not isolationists because we
Thank
don't
you.
want to be involved in somebody else's fight. I think, for a lawyer, Megyn Kelly, I think you know what the word means. I think you're being incredibly disingenuous when you say that we're just isolationists. No, I don't think it's wrong for us not to want to engage with other nations that are in the middle of a conflict. Call me when you're not in this anymore. Call me when you're ready to end this. I might be able to assist in negotiating a peace, but I'm not sending men or women to this fight. I'm not sending money to this fight. I'm just not doing it. We don't want to do it. And we've come so far beyond this whole idea that a government can galvanize. And I just said this in one of the episodes that I did. I said this in this episode that I just did today. I said it in yesterday's episode as well. That we're so beyond this idea that the government can lie and galvanize a nation to want to go to war without any questions. Bush did the same thing, and we found out off of an audio tape by his own admission that Iran, I believe, was the nation, had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11. It was either Iran or Iraq, had nothing to do with 9/11. But he told the American people that they did, and we were ready for bloodshed because of what happened on 9/11. We're not doing that again. You can't just have someone from another country come here, because why is Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu no different than when Winston Churchill came here during World War I, before we got involved, to say why we had to go and fight the Germans in World War I? This was before Hitler. So why are we going over there to fight a war that is really in your region, not ours? Look at where we are, distance-wise. Come on. I'll give you why we had to fight Hitler. But why are we fighting Germany before he was even a problem? Okay? Hitler wasn't a thing for World War I. Why are we even there? Does anybody even really know? And I'm supposed to you can't do that anymore. You can't just come here, talk to our leaders, our representatives in office, convince them to convince their constituency, that we have to go to war. We have to risk American lives. We have to go further into debt just so we can fight these wars. Knowing the fact that the Federal Reserve banks make money off of these wars, knowing the fact that the central banks in Davos make money off of these wars. This has been the case with the United States, and we are $35 trillion in debt. This has been the case with Japan, and they were not afraid to lock people up and kill them when they had this issue back in the 1980s and their whole economy collapsed. China's doing the same thing in Africa. We're doing the same. And this is why when you look at why people don't like our nation is because we go and create enemies and we lie to them. You're not doing that anymore. If you're sitting here saying that Israel wants to fight Iran, I want nothing to do with it. Candace can ask all the questions she wants about where radical Judaism stems from. We did the same thing when there was a 9/11 attack. Where does radical Islam come from? Do we even understand it? Do we want it here in the United States? And we had all this animosity built up against Muslims in America because we didn't know where the radical ideology came from, that we had to learn and understand. So we didn't just go around punching and hating on Muslims. We had to understand where this comes from. And if Candace wants to understand where radical Judaism is coming from, to understand why they are allowed to put $100 million in our elections, why we have people in our government who are advocating for us to go to war to defend Israel against the Palestinians in Iran. Like, again, Bibi Netanyahu is about to be charged. NATO was even considering. We know that George Clooney's wife is looking to having him, charged with war crimes. And in the debate that Candace had with Rabbi Shmuley, all he could say to justify him was, oh, well, Western leaders committed war crimes too back in World War II. Dick Cheney is a war criminal. But no one's charged for these things.
I wasn't impressed by Rabbi Shmuley at all. I was not impressed by him. I do find that one of my big
with other war crimes.
He was.
I don't
one
care
of my biggest
whether or not
issues
we want
that
to
I
say
was
Winston
having.
Churchill was a war criminal or not. The
Yeah,
fact is,
I would say this.
He killed a lot of people.
Yeah, I
Do
would
I
have to
wanna
say this.
participate in
I
that anymore?
personally don't want the United States involved in any more of these conflicts. I don't believe that the United States has to be. I'm not even gonna lie. After everything that we've learned in that debate with Candace Owens and Rabbi Shmuley, it made me think, damn, was the Hindenburg even real? Like that was one of the things that convinced us to go to war in the first place. He's trying to come to America. Like that was some of the hysterics that we were hearing, and that was some of the reasons why we knew we had to go to war with the Nazis, because he was trying to come here. It was your only reason why we got in at the end. And so when I take that into consideration, I'm thinking to myself, we're not anti-Semitic for saying that we don't want to go to war with Iran. We don't want to aid. It's not that we don't have empathy for the loss of life to the Israelis that were living in Gaza, to the people who lost life there. The same way we don't feel, we have empathy for those who are losing life in the Russia-Ukraine incident. But what every America First individual is thinking to themselves, though I feel empathy, what does that have to do with me, with us? Why do we have to send our men? Why do we have to send our money? Why do we have to involve ourselves in a conflict that does not touch us? Now, granted, we're in a different state of being than we were during the First World War. Planes are a little bit more frequent. People can get here. People can reach the United States. We're no longer out of reach anymore. And so knowing that fact is why when the citizens say we don't want to be involved, they should be listening. They should be heeding that warning. And I do wonder, why is it okay for us to hold accountable American individuals? Because don't get me wrong, I do know Lauren Chen was born in Canada, but she's an American citizen now who lives in Nashville, who was building a business. Why is accepting foreign investment all of a sudden making her a target of the DOJ? And I do think that she was the first. I think that big tech and the government are going to start targeting American citizens. And it does remind me of Madeleine Bream's speech at the RNC when she said, Trump was right when he said they're after us. He's just standing in the way. And now that he is not pretty much there, he's not the president, he doesn't have the power to hold back the DOJ. Lauren Chen and her husband and her business are officially targets of the federal government. And it's far worse than it's ever been, because this isn't just shadow banning. This isn't just, we're not going to let you get ads on your YouTube content. They are charged with a crime. And people like Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro, who are attorneys, I don't know if they're still licensed to practice law, but we know that they're lawyers who at some point or another were able to practice law. And the fact that they totally disregarded the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, the fact that they ran with the allegation and pretty much condemned her, the fact that YouTube made this decision, shock, not, not
I
unexpected, but not shocking. I just find, like, what the hell else has to happen before the people who don't think like you and me
you know,
see that, what
do you
has to happen?
remember
Does
in
another Tulsa have to happen? Do we got to be bombed
so
by the federal government before you realize the
so
government
you
hates you and they're
know
after you?
So you know how in horror movies when they say the one thing you never say is "I'll be back," or one other thing you never say is "It can't get any worse." It's like, why did you say that? You
Oh
jinxed it,
my
because of
god.
course it's
Yes.
gotta get worse. It's never over. And we're living that
Gosh.
nightmare right
That's
now.
a good
And
point.
unfortunately, I think that when you look at people like Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro, I think it's quite obvious what their allegiance is. First of all, when she came out with her company, I was
Bunch of
excited for her. I was
Zionists.
excited for Megyn. I was supportive of Megyn Kelly. I didn't like the fact
I
that she
was
named her
too.
I didn't like the idea that she named her company The Devil's Advocate. It's like, first of all, woman, I saw that movie, and funnily enough, the main actress
Sure.
played you. So kind
Did
of,
you? You know what? I didn't
it's
even consider that. That is
like
a
you see,
good point. I mean, I know it's got nothing to
you
do
know,
with this conversation, but you're
it
right.
doesn't, but
Devil's advocate,
it is
crazy
a
chick.
little eerie. It is a little eerie. And, I thought it was also hilarious that she was wearing a blue dress, not a red dress.
That
That was
is
also
such
kind of
a good
hysterical.
point.
But I think that's kind of the thing here. I don't need you to be the devil's advocate. You could have just said, for
Oh
sake of
yeah,
the
because the
argument,
devil's always a woman and
for
no one's
sake of
advocate.
argument, let's say this is the case. Maybe not say devil's advocate, but I was in support of her. I was very excited to see what she was going to do. I was very pissed when she left. She left. It was more like she quit Fox. I got fired from it. And then you got fired from NBC, and I was mad on behalf of you. And I was so excited to see her, and it was a supportive of hers. The second the video podcast dropped, like, that's the thing. It was the same thing with the Daily Wire, right? I was I was watching their YouTube clips, but you and I subscribed to the Daily Wire to watch Candace Owens. And then they got Jordan Peterson, and that was awesome to see as well. I was really looking forward to see what the Daily Wire had to do, and moving forward, I was really excited. They got Brett Cooper, and Snow White was coming out, and I was on your side.
Word, and they brought
But
on,
then
what's her
you
name? Gina
allowed Gina Rodriguez as well. That was amazing. And then Brett Cooper is now
Carano, I
Snow
think,
White.
not Rodriguez.
Right, not Rodriguez. Excuse me. I'm getting mixed up with another actress. Yeah, Gina
Yeah,
Rodriguez is
there's a
Jane the
lot of
Virgin.
them. Gina.
Yeah, there's a lot of Ginas.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a
Gina
Gina, the
Rodriguez
one
is
who went
Jane
to
the
war with
Virgin.
Disney. Everybody knows
Yeah,
that
the
Gina.
one who warred with Disney. Gina. That Gina, not Jane the Virgin. But that was amazing. Brett Cooper is Snow White. They are doing their version, I'm a guess, of the King Arthur storyline. And I'm like, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
You've cost
Yeah.
yourselves a subscriber. Every time I'm scrolling, and they pay for the reach. So I constantly have to say,
I know,
do
and
not
I was
recommend this
going
channel.
into the settings. I even go
Words
into
like,
the
do
ad
not recommend.
settings to stop showing this ad.
To stop showing this ad, do not recommend this channel. I do it with all of them. I don't watch Brett Cooper anymore. It's not that I don't like her, but I don't watch you
Yeah.
anymore because you're a part of the Daily Wire. I don't watch Jordan Peterson anymore. I'll read your books because that's not associated with them. Anything that's not
The Daily
associated with
Wire.
the Daily Wire, I will engage with. But as long as it's associated with them, I'm not doing anything with it. Megyn Kelly, she's
Yeah.
associated with the Daily Wire. And this is a question of, do you actually believe what you believe, what you're saying? And it's incredibly disappointing because, that's the thing that's so disappointing about what's happening with the right here.
Yeah.
That there is a sifting that's happening. And this is why the Lord said it's a remnant after the rapture. Only a remnant of people survive this. And to be frank, we're seeing that not in its literal sense from what you get from the scripture, but as it relates to what's happening digitally and commentators. Candace calls it Game of Thrones, and that's the thing. This shouldn't even be that. Like, you're a Zionist, which means you believe in Jesus. We should at least be able to come together on that. Now, you're also common sense, Megyn, so you should be able to have your antennas come up. Okay, I disagree
When
with
they
her
say
when it
Russia,
comes
Russia,
to Israel. But the fact that they're saying she's a Russian agent, I'm like, sorry, with a name like Chen, if she was a foreign adversary, she was a foreign agent, it would be with China. With a name like Chen, that's what it would be. But then she's from Canada. So that already eliminates that. then
Yeah,
in the
that's why I was
indictment,
like,
there are no charges filed, but she could be cooperating.
I
Yeah, that's
know.
also true.
And I'm
But if
like,
you
and that's
hadn't said
why
she
I
was an
can't
effing
say,
idiot, if you hadn't said all these other terrible things
yep,
and brought these guests on that were just ripping into her, I hope she gets what she deserves. There are no charges filed. You have no real evidence that says that she's guilty. The
right,
fact that they're saying it's Russia, Russia, and that it's coming from this government and this
is
administration,
even more reason to be skeptical of it. Yeah,
it's
I
like
was so
worse.
disappointed in her. It's like
I'm incredibly
she
disappointed. Now,
totally
I
failed
have
her
been, but I'm still
audience.
listening and watching her.
Yeah, like you've been
I'm
disappointed.
officially done.
Right, because
Yeah,
it's like,
I
I
stopped
thought I'm
subscribing,
done
but I
too
watch
because I
once in a
used to
while.
go to Megan.
No,
Yeah,
I
because
don't.
I would
No, I'm done.
personally, I would go to Megan, because I thought she was a really good source of information. I felt like that I can trust I can trust her objectivity. I knew I can trust that. And now having watched her reaction to this entire indictment and her condemning of Lauren Chen, I was totally unhappy with how she covered it. I couldn't stand her guests. I was right there in the comment section too. I had to make it clear I thought she was being unfair. Her guests were unfair, and I wasn't surprised I was surprised that majority of her audience were doing the same thing that we were doing in her comment section. I was completely disappointed, and I do wonder what's going to happen with Lauren Chen, what's going to happen with her husband, if there are going to be charges brought. Now, I can't say that she's innocent or guilty because, again, nothing has happened from this indictment. No charges have been brought. No one's been arrested. None of that. But I do wonder what's going to happen. If nothing comes of this, Archie, I promise you, I hope that if these charges are dropped,
There are
I
no
hope, I
charges.
pray that, yeah, no, right. I'm saying, right, if the indictment gets thrown out and nothing happens to Lauren Chen, I hope, personally, I hope that Megyn Kelly gives her an opportunity to talk, because if she doesn't, kind of give, like how Candace gave Cardi B the opportunity to walk back. If
Yeah.
she doesn't allow Lauren to come onto her show to talk about the situation, what happened with the government and all that, which will probably happen after Trump gets into office, let's call a spade. When it comes out, if they don't give her the opportunity, I pray that Lauren launches the biggest civil defamation lawsuit in the history of this country against Megyn Kelly, the Daily Wire. You can get, the Blaze they didn't say anything about it. They just fired her,
Yeah,
and
they
she would
just,
have to go after them for something else, not defamation, because they've said
it wouldn't
nothing.
be
And you have
defamation,
to
but
go after YouTube
termination.
first. Right. You would have to go after YouTube for something else because, again, they're not saying anything. They just banned her.
Well,
But Megan, the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, she needs to go. If it comes out that she is not guilty, and not even not guilty, but if this indictment goes nowhere, no charges are brought,
so
that we find that she isn't a foreign agent, that she's not guilty of money laundering, and not given the
is she willing
opportunity
to admit
to,
that she was wrong?
I, I hope and if they don't and apologize to her, she needs to launch the largest civil lawsuit against them as it
I
relates
will
to
say
defamation of
this.
character.
I think
At least I would
that
hope that.
Lauren Chen is innocent. She's innocent until proven otherwise.
I
So
think so
yeah,
too.
that's what I'm saying. It's like, oh, I can't say she's that's
Oh,
the
you mean under the
that's the
presumption. I get you.
yeah, it's you're innocent until proven guilty. Now, as far as what I believe personally, I personally
Personally.
think she's innocent, and it is because of
Yeah.
this government pushing, bringing the indictment. That already in and of itself, that's the first thing. And the second thing is because they're saying Russia. These are two things that suggest to me that this is a bunch of hogwash. That's enough. Okay, it could have been anybody. They could have said Nick Fuentes. I don't really like Nick Fuentes. I don't really, I don't dislike him. I just don't really watch him that often. I mean, when he had something to say about Groyper War II, I
Yeah,
had to
I
find
hear
out what he
ya.
was saying. But, it doesn't like, I don't like Ben Shapiro either. But if they brought allegations against Ben Shapiro, I would be all like, wait a minute. I don't like him very much, but since when do we do this? Since when are you saying
Yeah.
that since when do we do this? And it doesn't surprise me because look at this government. First of all, what we know about Kamala Harris is that since she was a damn attorney general, she's gone after political adversaries. This government, Biden and Harris, they go after their political adversaries. The fact that the Russia thing has been a part of our
It's been
daily narrative
reconstituted.
since 8 years. It's been a part of our narratives from the mainstream media for 8 years. So this should already
Yeah.
have everybody's antennas going up just off of that notion alone. The fact that it's this government and that it's Russia collusion, Russia, Russia, Russia. This was used in 2016 from Hillary Clinton,
I
and we
can't
found
even
that was a
believe we're
lie.
back
So
there. Like,
that's the
I
whole
can't
thing,
even believe
right?
we're back there.
The sad tragedy is that we're not shocked about this government. We're not shocked about this particular lie about Russia being involved. Never mind the fact that Vladimir Putin has come out and said that he supports Kamala Harris becoming the president. Okay. You got the New York Times saying that this is just a joke. Oh, he jokingly said it. He was being sarcastic. But you know damn well if he said Donald Trump, he would have said, oh, he's an adversary. He's an asset. He's a Russian asset. So why not with Kamala Harris? We know why he supports Kamala Harris getting into the White House because we know he knows
Because it
that he
means
can
that
take
he can
advantage.
run rampant.
He can run rampant and take advantage of her weakness because she's a weak ass woman. I've saying this a million times. It's like, right. So why is it that he would, put someone who doesn't want to be anywhere near Russia? We talk about Lauren Chen is a Russian agent. I'm sorry, how is she pushing Russian agendas when all she says is, I don't want to war with them? That isn't, I'm not
Right,
pushing
and
an
it's like the
agenda.
proof
And we
is
shouldn't
in the
be surprised.
pudding. Like, to sit here and say that she is guilty of pushing Russia propaganda when her own, like, the content is in no way advocating for some of what the Russian agenda. Now, I do
Yeah. And
believe you don't have to be a Russian agent to be in
not want
alignment
nuclear
with the
war.
Russian agenda. I
Right.
don't want us involved in the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia does not
Right.
want the United States or NATO involved in Ukraine.
It's like, but
So
neither does
my
America
comments
first.
are in alignment, right? It's like my comments are in alignment with Russia's own
Right.
agenda. I don't want us involved in Russia-Ukraine war. They don't want America and Russia-Ukraine war.
Yeah.
It's in alignment. Am I an agent? Am I a spy? Am I a shill? Right?
I
Is
would say
anyone like, is Tucker
that
Carlson the same guy who's
moving.
questioning Zelensky, right? Who's
Mhm.
interviewed Putin. Is he a Russian spy, a Russian agent? Like,
I
he's got,
think
like, Tucker Carlson owns his
that,
own media company. He's Tucker Carlson Media.
yeah.
Now, the difference between Tucker and Lauren is that because he did work for companies like Fox, and before Fox, I think he worked at CNN or
Yeah.
at NBC. So it's
Mhm.
like he was making millions and millions of dollars a year, just like Megyn Kelly. So they have their own capital to invest in their own media companies. Whereas individuals like Lauren Chen, whose entire political commentary career has been
Mhm.
with streaming and podcasting through Blaze or her own stuff, she doesn't have that same capital. So here you have an American citizen who takes advantage of investors who come to her and say that, listen,
I
we
think.
believe in what you're saying, we believe in your content, and we would like to create a media
Mhm.
company. And to hold her accountable for something that we know American businesses are doing every single day, I find to be outrageous, and I find it disingenuous that people like Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro are pretty much condemning her and saying that she's guilty of being a foreign agent and money laundering, and
I think.
not giving her the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Like, she's an American citizen, she's owed that much, and I find it unbelievable that two people who we know are lawyers, and that's what makes it even more disgusting, because I already didn't like Ben Shapiro, and I was already having issues with liking Megan, because you know me, I was on the fence off again. And it was like, the one thing I could count on from the both of you is that you are attorneys. And the one thing I can count on is that you would be objective about the law. Maybe not about Israel, maybe not about Russia and Ukraine, but about the law, I knew you could be objective. And simply because you have a commentator who's against the two things that they are for, their objectivity with the law went out the window. And I think that's what I
I
found the most egregious from the
I think
right.
that moving forward, to be honest here, because I mean, look, with this administration, I don't think anyone really is safe. I just don't think that,
Yeah.
even with the work that you and I are doing, we're not very large channels, so we don't really pose as a threat. I do, however, believe though that one is going to have
I
to
think our
try
channels are
to,
being messed with.
that could be it, but because we're not so
I think it's an
large,
algorithm
we're
thing.
not,
Yeah.
yeah, it could be an algorithm thing, I think moving forward, however, channels are going to have to, and this really just until we actually get a handle on this. And this is a question if we ever do, I don't mean to be a pessimist about it, but, we're kind of at that point in a society where things go downhill from here. I mean, this is one of the biggest things that we've been saying. And as someone who is, interested in the history of our economic system, it times out,
Yeah.
no different than what it was even with the Romans. One of the greatest empires just became a city in another nation. And part of that was because anybody who had dissenting opinions were not allowed to thrive, and this is far different. We just don't go around killing people anymore. You could just cut them off. You could have them fired because they said something on social media. You could, if they do
Yeah.
decide to go full time on YouTube, and using their social media because they got fired from their day job and they actually attempt to make money out of it, YouTube could just cut you out of it. There are some alternatives like Rumble. You may not get the same reach, but let's say you're a small channel and you're able to earn. That's pretty interesting. But let's say you're someone who is an
Yeah.
industrial podcaster and you have a small business and you're selling things, but because of your comments on certain issues, particularly as it relates to Israel, that all of a sudden you no longer can use Shopify or point of sale because they're being told by the federal government, hey, we don't like them, stop using it. So we're there. And until there are criminal
Yeah, it's
charges,
unfortunate.
pretty much laws that are created, and not to say that they aren't laws, they could be, and they're just not being enforced.
Because
Is it a crime for them to do this? Because I
that's what
don't
it is.
like the
Because
idea
remember what I
of,
said, we're done
um,
here for the stupid and for the corrupt. There are
yeah,
laws that say
it's
they're not allowed to do any of the things that this that YouTube is doing to Lauren
right.
Chen. I mean,
Because, if someone is, is it
and they
fair? Like we were
violated them
talking about it
anyway.
earlier, right? Is it okay? Do they have the right, YouTube, I mean, as a platform, to just completely bar someone from using their platform off of an allegation?
When no
Is
crimes were
that,
committed.
right, when no crimes have been committed off of an allegation of a crime, because that's what they're suggesting. This is an allegation of a crime here,
Mhm,
because, to be a foreign adversary, a foreign asset
mhm.
of an adversary would be treason, essentially, is what they're talking about. That's a crime.
Right.
And so does YouTube have a right to just pull off somebody off of their platform off of just an allegation? And it's not just off of this particular crime, but in principle of any crime. Can you just remove someone from earning, period, or having a platform to utilize your platform, period,
Yeah.
off of an
Well,
allegation?
I will
Like
say
this
this,
goes beyond the Lauren Chen
we've been
thing.
doing this for about
Um, yeah, but
yeah.
I do want to say
We've
one
been
more
doing
thing
this for
about
about
the conservatives.
yeah, go ahead.
I do want to say one more thing about that. I think that if you are someone who's America first and you don't want to be involved in any of these wars, whether it's Ukraine and Russia or Israel and the Palestinians, I think that we have to be prepared to suffer some kind of version of persecution, whether it's some little, persecution from the algorithm, or if it's going to be as grand as what we're seeing with Lauren Chen. I think it's far worse than what Candace Owens went through as it relates to just being fired from the Daily Wire, right? I think it's far worse
Yeah.
because now it's not just dealing with a publisher. You're dealing with the federal government, and no one wants the federal government as an enemy, especially when it now appears like she's out here alone, because Megyn Kelly doesn't have her back, that's for sure. Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire doesn't have her back, that's for sure. I hope her family, and I feel like her family's got her back. It's good to see Candace. If Lauren ever sees this, I hope she
Yeah.
knows, I stand with her. I think she's innocent, not only innocent until proven guilty, but I mean, at heart, like
And I
entirely. I
don't
think
believe her to
I
be
don't believe
a
her to be a
traitor,
traitor.
because
And
it's
that's all I have to say
ultimately
about
what
that
they're
part.
saying that she is.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so yeah, we've been doing this for about almost an hour, 30 minutes. Do you have any closing
Mhm.
remarks about it? Or was that really was that your sum up about this whole situation with Lauren Chen? I mean, I know we want to hear
Well,
more, like we want more information. So I really feel like everything that you could say about the circumstance has been said. But any closing remarks for
I'll
the audience
say
before we close it out?
times are tough. It's scary as heck because we've never, especially millennials, we've never seen this before. It was like when COVID happened, the society shut down. A lot of us didn't get vaccinated and we were discriminated against and we didn't know what to do. I've never suffered this kind of oppression before in my life. Like I've never seen such egregious actions from this government, and it is a bit concerning. More than concerning, it's absolutely terrifying. But that's where our faith matters the most, and that's where our community has to mean most to us, because It's unfortunate, but the right is beginning to divide itself yet again. First, it was establishment versus MAGA. Now there's a divide amongst MAGA and America First because somehow it's appearing as if you can be MAGA, but MAGA means you can fight for Israel. Where America First is like, no, I don't want to do that. And that's the divide that we're dealing with today. Though concerning, I think it's important that we remain true to our beliefs and our values and cling fast to Jesus and our families because, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Boomers may be able to say something different. They come from a generation where the federal government and state governments were on some stuff. We've never seen that. I've never seen this in my lifetime ever. And they're killing people without killing people. When you take away someone's livelihood, that's everything. And that's what they're doing to Lauren Chen. They tried to do it to Candace Owens, and she was able to come back from that. But this wasn't the adversary wasn't the federal government. We've learned about this in our history classes. This is something totally different. But cling fast to Jesus, people, because this is unprecedented, at least for the millennial. I've never seen this before. And I do believe that Lauren Chen is innocent. It's unfortunate that there are people in the conservative media, independent media specifically, that are willing to turn on the ideas that we shared and the values that we shared. And I think it's just quite obvious they don't have our values, and the Lord exposes the people that we needed to expose. And he said that was going to happen in the times that we're in. He said it was going to happen. It's happening. We know it. Cling fast to Jesus. And in the end, we win. It'll be tough, but we win in the end. And really, that's all I got to say about that. Hashtag Christ is King all day. God is good.
Ditto. Totally agree on that. Well, tell everybody where they can find your stuff. Like I said, we'll try to drop it in the comment section where everyone can find your YouTube channel and everything. But, it's good when you can, put it out there.
Yeah, sure. So my YouTube channel is Archie Financial. It'd be my face, but I guess that's not really a good indicator because you have my face too, or I have yours since I'm 10 minutes younger. But you can follow me on Instagram at Archie Financial. You can follow me on Twitter at Archie_finance. Again, you can find my YouTube channel on Archie Financial, and it's called Archie's Briefings. So, this last episode was pretty hilarious in my opinion. Informative, but very funny. Very funny. Because sometimes I can be funny. I have my moments.
You do.
But pretty much, that's what it is.
Let's call it straight. That one title today was already Kamala Gets Deeper.
It was so easy, like she is.
I can't wait to watch it.
It was so easy.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I love when we can anytime, Twingster. I mean, anytime we can do these lives. I mean, I know what we did one for your show. I don't think it was a live though. I think we just kind of pre-recorded it. But this was a new experience. So we'll I think we should do lives when we do our thing. I think off the cuff with the Twinkies, I think it's pretty fun. But thank you so much for joining for this one. Much appreciated.
Thank you. And no problemo.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was today's episode with Brazen Insights with Asia. It's the second live that I've ever done on this channel, and it was a lot of fun. Well, third live, if you will, but the second one for Brazen, and today it was fun. I loved what Archie was saying when she was talking about clinging to faith. It was impactful. I think that's exactly what we have to do. There is a sifting. When she mentioned that there is this infighting happening between MAGA and America First, and I'm starting to realize that MAGA is pretty much about economic populism, whereas America First is about putting America's interests first. And it's not always about making money. It is about doing what is right and what is fair for the American individual. And sometimes that does mean, turning away other nations, even nations that we were once allies with, France, Israel. Maybe we should consider that. And you look at what Lauren Chen is going through. Lauren, I know it's a small channel, but I hope she hears this and hears the support coming from those of us who still trust her. And we don't believe you to be a traitor, even if you took money from Russian individuals. So does half of the businesses in America. We do not believe you to be a traitor of the United States of America. You believe in the First Amendment. You believe in Jesus Christ is the King and our Savior and should have supremacy over this land and that of the world. This is going to be your storm. So, cling fast to God. And so should all of us, because I'm still one of those people. And as you heard from Archie, this is a government that is going to go after us all. And they seem to be specifically going after us Christians, because I don't see them going after the Jews over at the Daily Wire. But that's my time, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys really enjoyed this live. This was a lot of fun. Doesn't really happen that often, but it was a lot of fun. I intend to do some more lives, have some more conversations with my twinkster, Archie, from the show, Archie's Briefings. Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, God bless.